Hello and welcome back to the Intuition Revolution. I'm your host, Kim Chestney, and today's guest is the lovely Marla Mervis Hartmann. Joining us from Topanga, California, Marla is the leading body image expert and Reiki master at Journey Malibu. She's a professional coach, facilitator, and speaker, and her TED Talk has over 130,000 views, and she is devoted to empowering women to feel good about themselves and the life they desire. I met Marla a few years back when we realized we were both hometowners here in Pittsburgh, and I immediately fell in love with her warmth and her radiant authenticity. She has been one of our favorite guest teachers at Intuition Lab, and I'm just elated to have her here with us today to talk about the role intuition plays in healing and our bodies and our well-being. So welcome, Marla.
I'm so glad to be here. I always love spending time with you, Kim.
We do. I mean, our work has such a great overlap. So
It really does.
so nice to have you here to really share in this conversation. And I know we've talked about a lot of this stuff before, but I think this is new to a lot of people. So maybe you could kind of start by talking a little bit about what you do and your areas of expertise and how that sort of ties in with intuition.
Yeah, so I support women, primarily women, but men too, on how to love their bodies. So I had struggled with a lot of dysfunction in my relationship with my body and food, a lot of overeating, undereating, binging, purging, all of that, and really disconnected from my body. Disconnected to any signs that my body was telling me to eat, to stop, eat, to exercise, to slow down, whatever it was. I stopped all those cues and went into like no pain, no gain grind mode. And then finally, thank God, fell flat on my face and realized I needed support. And after years of recovery, I found in my recovery, I found Reiki, I found Tantra, I found a deeper connection to myself in spirituality. And when things finally tipped over the edge to that, finally the moment of like, oh, I love my body, I like my body, I listen to my body, I knew that that's what my journey was to do, was to support other people to find acceptance and surrender and to love their body and get away from diet culture and get more into the culture of their body.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about how that culture of your body is so tied into our intuition. And a lot of us don't realize that. You don't realize that your body speaks to you all the time, right? Like it's talking to you when you eat, it's talking to you when you are, healing or sick and you're trying to find equilibrium. And we don't listen to the little subtle cues that our body tells us, right? And what's your sort of experience in terms of making that shift, like you said, to recovery, as far as how tuning into your intuition helped you to kind of step into your real self and that acceptance of your real self?
It was a journey in figuring out how to do this. Because I was so disconnected, my body and I had to become friends again. And we had to learn how to trust each other. My body didn't trust me and I didn't trust my body. So really finding the intuition and finding the connection to my body was about those lines of trust. Like, oh, okay, if I trust my body, it's going to tell me how much to eat and when to stop. And I didn't trust that. So over time of learning those cues and listening to those cues, see, there's a difference. There's a difference in the cues that are coming from fear, the fear-based cues that are saying like, don't eat that. That's not safe. That's not okay. Back away or eat it really quick. Those sort of things we think is intuition. We think it is those, but it's actually the fear-based. Right behind that is that connection, is the actual voice. Because I have a lot of people say to me, Marla, you tell me that if I listen to my body, then I will be safe and I will feel comfortable in my body and I'll be safe around food. But if I listen to what my body wants to eat, I'm just going to completely overeat. I'm never going to stop eating sugar. I'm going to be shoving food in my mouth. And that's fear. And that was my fear, completely 100%, that kept me in the reins of binging and purging for many years. But see, the real voice the real voice knows. So sure, there may be those times where your body, actually the real voice is saying, you're going to eat, and you're going to eat a lot because you've been restricting for so long, and you're going to eat. But then there is going to come a point, if we listen, that the body is going to regulate and the body is going to know. And I swear, Kim, like, this is not something you just get and then you're good.
Right.
I'm in a whole other exploration around this right now, like, just to be honest, like, around my food, because I was in such restriction for so many years. I had to really loosen those reins. And because it's not about diet, now I'm listening even more. I'm slowing down and saying, is this enough? And even around exercise, how does my body want to exercise? Because I was an over exerciser, so I just pushed through, right? So I think it's a continual thing, because we're creating a friendship with our body.
Right.
We're becoming friends with our body.
Right. Absolutely. And, ever since we started talking about this, I've really started to employ it more in my life. And I've started to really differentiate that the feeling of when it's a craving or a want or like an emotional eating versus a real intuition about what my body needs and what my body wants. Right. And it feels different. Right. Like, and when you think of it in terms of intuition, and I didn't, it took me so long to really grasp it. But now that I've really started tuning into that body intuition and the way it feels when, like, rice appeals to me. Oh, today rice appeals to me. Doesn't always appeal to me, but for some reason today it's appealing to me. I'm going to eat that and see how I feel. And when you do that, it's amazing how you start to feel better, right? You start to, like, eat things, even though there's a bunch of healthy things out there, even beyond the overeating part, right? Like, even if there's a bunch of healthy things to pick from, we can kind of transfer that into, like, which of these healthy things are right for, like, my body chemistry and my metabolism and all this other stuff, right?
Yes, and I think it comes into, what's your intention? If your intention is to listen to your body so that you can lose weight and you don't like yourself, and you're like, okay, I'm going to listen to my body so that I can hear what it wants. Like, if you're coming from that place of negativity, it doesn't quite work. Right? If you're coming from the sense of true respect and love for yourself, it's going to be a clearer channel of that information. So there may be times, and I'm not someone who says emotional eating is necessarily bad. We eat for our emotions. We eat to have fun. We eat because we're a little anxious, and it grounds us. There are times that emotional eating is the right choice. So it's like getting clear on what our intention here is. And you're right, like, it's not necessarily about bad choice, right choice. Like, if we go into a grocery store and we're really hungry and we're thinking, okay, I want something that's nourishing, I want something that's healthy, and I want something that's really tasty. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, body, like, tell me what it is. And that's been a big one for me, because my mind would be like, I don't know, do we? Right. But if I just center and ask, like, what is the best choice for me for this moment?
Yep.
And then listen. And we're all so different. And I know you teach this, right? But we're also different on how that information comes. The body may all of a sudden start walking that way down that, it may know.
Right.
Or you can be standing in front of something and your body leans forward or it leans back. Or, you have a vision of something. So many different ways that our body speaks to us. But I find it really speaks through the sense of pleasure. Like, what actually feels good in the body. Yes. Right? Like, when we ride that, not pleasure like sexuality pleasure, I mean, sure, but just like when our body starts to open and light up a little bit. That's when we know it's a yes.
Yes, totally. That expansive feeling, right? It invites it, right? It's not that contractive feeling of like, oh, I need to eat this. And that's like why so many diets, I think, just don't work, because we're just following this prescriptive manual that isn't really right for us or for our bodies. That we're all unique and we're all in different places, and your intuition can kind of guide you towards those different areas. Yeah.
And you're reminding me of the fact that diet culture and all of social media, so much of social media is really giving us these ideas of what good food is, bad food is, what the right way to move our body, the wrong way to move our body. We can often get confused on those voices. Something we just listened to on a podcast or saw on an Instagram. Oh, well, she does it and she looks like that, or he does it and he, those are not, that's not intuition. That's just information.
Right.
Now, and I think that's so important. Okay, so you have the information, right? And we're bombarded with information, especially when it comes to diet culture. We're bombarded with this. Now, what are we going to do with it? Is that actually good for you?
Right.
Is that actually something that your body wants?
Right. And that's where your intuition comes in and sort of makes sense of all that chatter.
Yes, definitely.
And one of the things I love that you always say is that, we're so mean to ourselves, right? And we would never be as mean to other people as we are to ourselves. And, you really don't think about how mean you are every day. Not all of us, but from time to time, we're very self-critical, right? We look in the mirror and we're very critical of ourselves. And, we wouldn't treat other people that way. And yet we feel like it's okay to treat ourselves this way. So I love this shift that you're bringing when you're kind of bringing into consciousness this idea of self-acceptance and self-love. And, part of that intuitive connection is really accepting who you are and yourself and your body and forming that friendship, right?
Yes, you're just reminding me. I just did a video about the difference between liking yourself and loving yourself.
Mm.
So we think that because my business is called Love Your Body, Love Yourself, which can be a little like confronting, right? But there's a difference between loving and liking. You don't have to like your body. You don't have to look in the mirror and like what you see every day. You don't have to feel comfortable in your body all the time in order to love yourself. It's like a relationship with your partner, right? You don't maybe like them all the time. They do things that you're not enamored with. They do things that you don't like. You're kind of annoyed, right? But you still love them. You still show up for them. You still, you still have respect for them. It's the same thing we can do for ourselves. So if we're in a place and having a day where we don't like ourselves, how can we love ourselves? How can we show respect for ourselves? When we're in anxiety and not liking ourselves, it's never the right time to tune into our intuition and say, how can I support myself? How do I want to eat? How do I want to show up in my body, right? So if we're in that space, we're not able to find that center. If we're in that space and we're still taking care of ourselves, we're still showing up, we're still noticing our negative thoughts and being like, I'm going to let that go for today. The next hour, I'm not going to say anything mean to myself. I'm going to respect myself the way I would a friend, right, who I'm not gisting with right now. I'm going to take a little break from myself. I'm going to find a deeper love for myself. And when we do that, we can get clearer. We can get more clear within ourselves. And that helps us to speak kinder to ourselves, to show up for ourselves, to listen, that trust. We don't trust a friend. We don't trust we're not going to trust our body if we hate it, right? It's not a good, clear communication. It's very mean.
It is so true. It really is. And all this stuff has to ultimately tie back into like our health and our wellness and our healing, because if we have a good relationship with our body where we love our body and accept it, even though, sometimes it's not perfect, we all have challenges and we all have struggles and we might have injuries or chronic pain that we're dealing with, but looking at those things as being meaningful parts of our existence and accepting them should allow us to have a better connection and a better level of energy that allows us to heal more and to get into that space of healing and well-being, right?
Absolutely. Because it's not just about loving what we look like, it's loving our body regardless of its limitations, physically or mentally or even emotionally. Um, when we can accept that,
Mhm.
we can support ourselves. I was just listening to these CDs I listen to all the time, and it was just about getting in the right vibration and really finding the next best thought. And even if you're in a place with your health that you're struggling, is not to make that about your self-worth and to not to put yourself down. Like, if I have this illness or this struggle, it means that I'm not, I haven't got my health taken care of, or, like really putting ourselves down for being human.
Right.
And so how can you, how can I, moment by moment, be in acceptance? I mean, I got sick like the third time this year when we're filming this. It's February, and I'm like, what's going on? Right? And I'm thinking to myself, like, what's going on, body? Like, come on. And I noticed myself getting angry at myself. Like, what the bleep, right? And then I'm like, oh, how about a little bit of compassion here?
Right. Right.
How about, like, Marla, like, maybe something's up. Maybe we need to slow down. Maybe we need something, or maybe we just need not to be hard on ourselves and just go to bed.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we get into this, there's this sort of subliminal headspace with like, oh, I'm my sickness or my injuries are like, oh, what have I done wrong? This is like some kind of negative reflection on my life and well-being. And there are even like spiritual teachers out there who, that saying that illness is a reflection of spiritual dissonance. And I think that that's a real tricky way to look at our bodies when they challenge us, because to me it seems more like, everything's information, right? Like when we get sick, like the universe could be saying, slow down, treat yourself, give yourself some self-love, right? These are all things, right? Not like a punishment for doing like too much, but more just like a course correction to help us get into the place where we need to be for our optimum health and our optimum well-being, right?
Yes, I think what you said about the body is giving us information is so important. Like, if the body is continually sick in a certain way, we don't want to go into the victim mode of like, this is happening to us. So there is some responsibility to take for it. But if we take the responsibility for having a illness or a sickness and beat ourselves up with it, like, what's the point in that?
Right.
Like, take responsibility, but do it with compassion. Because when we do it with compassion, we can once again hear the information that we're supposed to be on how to take care of ourselves better.
Right.
It's like when we start beating ourselves up and start flinging stuff at ourselves, it's like we take this huge veil and we separate, or maybe up here we want to say it, right? We separate and we push away any good information that's coming in intuitively, right? We like buffer ourselves because we're too like in our, like, right? And there's no space for truth to come in because we're so flooded with fear or anger, upset, or frustration at ourselves. So it's clearing that out. And remember, you don't have to like it. And by clearing it out and having some acceptance, you can actually have more compassion, and the intuition is flowing more.
Right. And it gets you into a better headspace, right? It gets you in that place of healing instead of that place of like anger and frustration and despair, right? Because you want to have that energetic alignment with healing and growth and love and compassion. So by giving yourself that, right, like that's what sets you up for optimum healing. So I mean, there's a purpose in our pain, right? And taking that purpose is important, but also accepting it as part of our growth and learning experience. So um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, and you do a lot of Reiki too. Like you're a Reiki master, right? And I have personally experienced your Reiki, and it was one of my favorite Reiki experiences of all time, I have to say.
Oh, wow.
I
Wonderful.
recommend that Marla Reiki.
Oh,
It was, and
thank you.
what I really responded to it. We did a distance Reiki, so it was from far away because, as you who are watching may or may not know, you don't have to be right with someone to do Reiki. It's intentional, so it goes beyond time and space. It works, um, in sort of the quantum physics type of connectivity. So, and I didn't know what to expect when after we had our Reiki circle. And all I can tell you is that afterwards, I felt so full of love and joy, and it
Mhm.
just warmed my heart. And, it was a dark, cold night here in Pittsburgh, a wintry night. And I just had this warmth inside me. And I remember feeling, I'm like, where's this coming from? And I had forgotten about the Reiki, because it was just like an hour or two. I was like, oh, now I know, like, and it is just this connection. It just hit me. And the fact that this healing feels so much like love and so much like warmth, really moved me. And I thought this was such a really powerful experience.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That so touches my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reiki is, I mean, it for me and what you're sharing, it's the energy of unconditional love.
Mhm.
And when I found Reiki, I actually found Reiki I was in a support group for an eating disorder. And I just remember this woman sitting there, and she had like one hand on her heart, one hand on her belly, and she was just loving herself up. And I was so annoyed. And I was like, why did she's just over there loving herself. And so, of course, I wanted what she had. So I went up and I asked her, so what are you doing? Like, what were you putting your hands on yourself? Like, what was that? And she said, I'm doing Reiki. And when I found Reiki and I went to my first Reiki circle and I found it changed everything. Because I was someone who was so committed to self growth and committed to making myself better, but I did it from a place of negativity. I did it from, once I stop this bad behavior, then I'm worthy of love. Once I, stop this or end this behavior, whatever it was, then I'm okay. And what I learned from Reiki, because it's not just a hands-on healing practice, it's also a spiritual practice. And it taught me that I can grow and learn from love. I want to let go of these behaviors because I want to be a better version of myself. So Reiki has been key for me in my recovery with loving my body, and has helped me intuitively connect to myself, because Reiki comes through your upper four chakras. So when I'm channeling it or being in it, it's clearing that, opening that third eye. So I'm really grateful for that.
It all works together.
It does work together.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. So are there any times in your life where intuition has come through for you, or has kind of taught you any lessons apart
Oh
from?
my gosh. Well, I feel like every day, right? Every day I'm learning and I'm figuring out. I'm thinking of one that's kind of interesting. So we were out, a couple friends of mine, with three of us. And if you know me, you understand that I have a thing about desserts. I stopped eating them for years and years because I couldn't control myself. And then I started eating them. And we went to this place, and I was like eating these chocolate cakes and all these different things. And I had this strong sense to not, like really strong, like, Marla, like, back away. And that's so not like me, to not like dive into that and to not even just override whatever those thoughts are, because
Right.
it's just not what I do anymore, right? Full permission. But I was like, I'm not, no way. And all my friends got sick.
So there was something in it.
Uh-huh.
See, now that is such a great example, right? Like, you didn't know, but a part of you knew, and good for you for listening to that.
I know. And that was hard, Kim.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah.
That is
I
dedication.
did have ice cream, but I didn't.
But you ate the right thing.
thing.
They all
Yeah.
got sick. Wow. Wow. So your body really, really did speak to you. Now, when you just kind of had the thought when it happened, or did you have like a feeling that went with that? I'm just curious.
I had a feeling. Usually I get it right in here, like in my solar plexus, kind of right in between the heart and the solar plexus where I'll feel things.
Mhm.
And I can just remember it was, and I don't know, it was a whole bunch of things. It was like,
It was
no,
a whole
no, back away. Woo, woo, woo.
Oh man. Well, at any rate, good for you. At least you listened and you honored your intuition. That's really all
I
we
did.
can do. Otherwise, we learn the hard way. That's what I always say. Like, you can listen to your intuition and learn the easy way, or you cannot listen to it and you're still going to learn. You're just going to learn the hard way.
Gonna learn the hard way. Yeah,
If only I had
exactly.
eaten that chocolate cake,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been
Oh.
sick. It's always 2020 hindsight too, but that's a great lesson. Awesome. So before we go, do you have any tips or any wisdom to help people get in touch with their bodies, with their intuition, or any guidance as they go back out into the life armed with their intuitive sensibilities?
I would say slow down, and going back to what we said is like looking at what is information and what is your intuition. Just because you learned something and it sparked you in the moment because you were like, oh, that sounds good, oh, that may work, or whatever it is, slow down and let your body receive that information and ask your body. And what I mean by that, because people are like, how do I ask my body? Literally, just close your eyes. We're always talking to ourselves anyways, and just ask your body, what do you want? What would you like? What would feel good? Start having these conversations, probably inside your mind rather than outside. Otherwise, people may think you're crazy, but you never know.
I love that. I love that. Slowing down, first of all, is, that's the intuitive headspace. In the stillness, intuition speaks. So I love that. And I actually need to make a note to myself for that too, because if you get into that space and slow down, it really does kind of give you that time to sit with it and feel the difference between those voices out there, right? And between like the insights and the ideas that come from within. I experience that every day. We're working, we're busy, we're trying new things. Instead of just running and jumping with everything that we think of, right? Slowing down and sitting with it and letting it really like your system literally like digest it and to see how it resonates with you, right? And then same with food. Like, okay, so I can talk to my body. Do I really want this? Or is this just an idea of something that popped up that I'm just going to shove down the hatch?
Exactly. Yeah. And isn't it so great, Kim, that you get to teach this? And this is because it keeps you like in on top of your game, right? You walking the walk, talking the
Yeah,
talk. It's so great that you get to sharpen your skills and every day.
it really is a constant reminder, because we're all human and it's easy to get caught up in life. And it really, working in this space, I love it. I love talking with people like you. Like, all of these interviews are just so good for me to like get into that headspace and really really dive in and really like get behind all of the stuff, because I'm really passionate about it. But really living it and walking the walk is so important, because that's how extraordinary things happen.
Exactly. Yeah. It's why how grace and ease happens, right?
Exactly. And that's really it. It's much easier to follow your intuition than to sit around and try and work everything out in your head,
Yep.
Just
Forcing it around. Yes.
let it come.
Thank
All right. Well, thank you so much, Marla, for
you.
all of your brilliant insights with us today. And you guys out there, you can all check out Marla's work at her website, loveyourbodyloveyourself.com. Take care.
Bye.